Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city of the carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today we have a special guest. We got the Wolf himself. Let me see. Do you want to introduce yourself for the audience?
James Henry, the National Vice President currently, and running for the National President of the NALC.
All right, that's as straightforward as it can be. I understand you're a straightforward guy, so that makes sense. Now, I had gotten questions, and for some reason, I got the most amount of questions that I've ever gotten for any candidate so far. So I'm going to set a 1 hour limit here, and we're going to get to a part two when we can. But for now, if you didn't hear your question, it's because I got an enormous amount of questions, and
Yes, sir.
yep. So let's see. We're going to start from the top. For members who may only know you through social media, campaign content, or controversy, who is James Henry outside of the union politics?
James Henry is a committed friend, family member, Christian, United States veteran by way of the United States Marine Corps, and just someone that is a union activist, someone that is in service to someone other than himself, that's in service to all my life, to my family, to my friends, to my community, to my country, and currently now to my union, my letter carrier brothers and sisters.
All right. Let's see. Number second question, we're going to say you often reference your Marine Corps service. Can you walk members through your military background, including whether you served active duty or reserve, whether you served overseas, and what your occupational role was, and what leadership responsibilities you held, and how did that shape your leadership style today?
Yes, I'm very, very proud to be a United States Marine, and I'm more so even proud to have had a career as a United States Marine. I spent my time both on active duty and reserve. I have just shy of 10 years of active duty. I initially went in 1983, of April of 1983, and I did my initial 4 years of active duty. And at the time, your Marine Corps or your military service, when you sign a contract, then was at least 6 years. Now they have it up to 8 year contracts, but it's comprised of active duty, active duty plus inactive duty or active reserves. So I had chose to sign a 4 year contract for active duty and then 2 years inactive. But once I got off of active duty, I decided to go into the SMCR, which is Selective Marine Corps Reserves, which is drilling a reservist. You go once a month and 2 weeks out of the summer at the minimum. And so I spent that time and I retired from the Marine Corps in April of 2009. Now, that spans more than the 22 years of service, but that's because my time comprised of active duty, select Marine Corps reserves, and inactive. So the time that I spent on active duty and active reserve, the SMCR, is what compulates my uh, retirement compilation or computation for 22 years plus. And so I did serve overseas with regards to been to um, Korea, I've been to Japan, I've been to Honduras. I've served, um, several places around the world. I never uh, was in country as relates to Iraq or Iran, Afghanistan, things of that nature, but I was activated to serve in support of the Gulf War, the Iraqi enduring freedom, and all of those different, should say, activations in support of the war. So that's what gave me, in addition to my initial 4 years, an additional almost 6 years of active duty because I had gotten activated about four different times while I was serving in reserves and as a union official. One of the things that I did is that I was very active with regards to leadership in the Marine Corps. I graduated with the Marine Corps Non-Commissioned Officers Program Academy, the Staff Non-Commissioned Officers Leadership Academy. I also served my occupational, or MOS is called a military occupational skill or specialty for some in other branches. I served as a Marine Corps 3043 was the billet number, but as a supply admin clerk overall. And I also served at a secondary MOS in civil affairs. So my responsibilities was to not only make sure that all the service personnel have any and everything that they need, from night vision goggles to paper clips on the desk to uh, Jeeps and 5-ton vehicles to uh, what is the cots that they sleep on and sleeping bags, any and everything. I was responsible for making sure that the individuals or the servicemen and women in my unit had all that they need to perform their duties. And then also I also served as a civil affairs specialist. So my responsibility was to go out and be a liaison between the military and the civilian population and help us assimilate and be a resource for the military and the community and how we all could work together and making sure that while we're there in on mission, that we can get the mission accomplished without any civilian backlash, without the military overstepping, and then also just being in overall support. I was constantly in leadership position. If anyone knows anything about the military, if you are, especially the Marine Corps, if you're a non-commissioned officer, meaning a corporal or a sergeant, you are either a squad leader or platoon leader. If you're a staff NCO, you're even that much more responsible for that. If you are a gunnery sergeant, then in this instance, there was occasions where I served as a company gunnery sergeant. A company is your unit that you're responsible for all the welfare of every uh, military personnel that's within your unit with regards to their administrative and their what we call uh, MR excuse me, forget morale, welfare, and recreation, MWR, is the acronym we would use. So we will be also responsible for the morale, welfare, and recreation. I was responsible for making sure that all the military personnel that was under my charge, that they were taken care of, that they made sure that they took care of their families. There was nobody that if we got activated, you didn't get to not make sure you had an allotment for your family at home to ensure that they had something to eat, the bills were paid. Because if your family isn't taken care of, the morale is going to be very low. You're not going to be able to take care of your mission if you're not ensure that your family is taken care of. So I had a host of responsibilities when it comes to my Marine Corps career. And I tell you, brother, that I was exceedingly proud to be in those positions. And it was just an accomplishment. And I can tell you for a fact, and anyone that knows anything about the military, and particularly, like I said, the Marine Corps, even the other branches of service, will attest that the Marine Corps is genuinely considered the hardest to be a part of. That's why they say the few, the proud, the Marines. Everyone that desires to be a Marine doesn't get to be a Marine. I put it to you this way: when I went into boot camp, my platoon started off with 80 uh, recruits. We only graduated with 32. So
Wow.
They weeded you out mentally and physically. And so those type of skills have carried over very much so into my adult life because I spent the bulk of my adult life as a military serviceman, a United States Marine.
Well, I appreciate you for your service.
Yes, and the thing about it is here, and later on I'll send you some pictures of me, and some of my accomplishments. And one of the things that was a real accomplishment, I thought, and by all accounts, most personnel would consider it, I was awarded the Navy Commendation Medal by the Secretary of Defense, United States Secretary of Defense. And not only was I awarded the Navy Commendation Medal, I was awarded it 3 times for leadership. And so that is something that was a proud moment in my life as well, because the Marine Corps does not just hand out medals just because you look good.
Yeah, of
Those
course.
things are well earned and well earned against those that are what we consider very stiff competition.
I believe it. I believe it. All right. I'm going to put those pictures up when you send them to me.
Yes, sir.
Now, let's see. I'm going to ask, what have you specifically been doing over the last several years to continue helping carriers despite the changes to your roles when it comes to your responsibilities?
You know, this harkens back again to my experience and also my training in the Marine Corps. One of the most prevalent models that they would often say is adjust, adapt, and overcome. And I had to execute in most recent years, adjusting, adapting, and overcoming all obstacles that's been thrown my way. And I tell you, brother, for one reason or another, just just for seemingly just on GP, general principle, that one roadblock or another has been thrown in my pathway here as my tenure as the vice president of the NLC. And so, if you're talking about since my duties were stripping away, and let's be clear upon this, is that there has not ever been given any explanation as to why my duties were stripped. I even asked, was there any performance issue? The answer was no. And I was giving just essentially, well, because Article 9 of the Constitution, Article 9 of the Constitution simply says that, the president has supervisory duties. So it was just because he could. And so, with that being said, um, the responsibilities that I normally would have had, and traditionally the VP had is overseeing the dispute resolution process, overseeing the grievance procedure as a whole, um, overseeing certain correspondence, also overseeing the training department or doing training that was related to the grievance procedure. And that's one thing that I have been doing, despite the day-to-day administrative duties, other than the uh, Committee of Appeals responsibilities that's outlined in the National Constitution, which designates me as the chairman of the Committee of Appeals, which are dealing with Article 10 charges and Article 11 appeals that come from the branches and from the field. I have been focused on up until uh, March or so. I have been focused on um, conducting, preparing for and conducting the Advanced Formal A and Beyond class. You may have heard of it yourself. And I was one of the chartered members of that class, even though it was not my um, my brainchild. That was of Lou Ross. So I don't want anybody saying I'm trying to take credit for it. But he brought myself in along with a few other RAAs at that time to be facilitators and help prepare and put that class out there. So since 2016, Up until recent times, up until this year, I have been preparing and conducting and overseeing the advanced formula and beyond class. Similarly, I had also been preparing and conducting and overseeing the arbitration advocacy class. So I would do anywhere between uh, on average about two classes of each year, and it would consist of a week-long training, and it was very involved, very in-depth, and so that's what I have been doing primarily, to continue my interaction with the field, continuing to service letter carriers to the extent that I can. And one thing that I have excelled at and have always loved is educating our uh, letter carriers, educating the workforce as a whole. Because the one thing about the Advanced Formula and Beyond class, it was not just restricted to the leadership of the branch or the shop stewards. Anyone that paid their fee to be able to come to the week-long class in Lithicum Heights, Maryland, were accepted into come and learn. And that's one thing that I'm a huge proponent of, brother, is ensuring that everyone has unfettered access to all that the NLC has to offer. I believe that you should educate the workforce, not just the leadership, not just the shop stewards, but everyone should have an ability and should have the opportunity to be educated and have access to everything that this union has to offer. So, should they decide that they want to move up in the union or take on greater responsibilities with regards to um, representing letter carriers or just being an activist for the union as a whole, because there's multiple roles that people can play. You can be a shop steward or you can be a legislative liaison. You can uh, perform just responsibly. Some people just want to service their community by being a food drive coordinator. You know, whatever it is that you desire to do, I believe that leadership, that we should make it available for everybody. So I have been doing that in addition to the Committee of Appeals. I've been making sure that I go ahead and continue to educate letter carriers. I answer the phones when they come through up at headquarters, and anyone that has ever reached out to me and try and get any assistance, I do everything that I can to help them.
All right. All right. So this one's a tough one. Many members have repeatedly asked for a public debate between you and Mike Cariff. Why have you declined those requests so far?
Well, let me tell you why. And this may uh, sound a little uh, curt or off-putting to his supporters, but simply put, I don't trust anything that he has to say. And I do not abide lying. I do not subject myself to uh, dishonesty. And in this particular instance, what transpired with my running as the standard bearer, if you will, for the CLC, the Concerned Letter Carriers, back in it would have been uh, May of 2024. Uh, there was a the group had gotten together that had formed the CLC. I was not a founding member of the CLC. In fact, those that don't know, Mike Cariff was one of the founding members. He was one of the ones that was pushing and attended the initial meeting in Jacksonville, Florida, to form the CLC to try and make a difference and have a reform movement. And during that particular point in time, I eventually was recruited to come in and check it out and participate. The group had asked, was there anyone that was willing to run for president? Mike Cariff threw his name in. I was asked, what I consider running for the national president, and ultimately I went on and agreed. During that period of time, um, we were going to be heading to the national convention at sometime soon, but nevertheless, Mike Cariff had decided that he wanted to make sure that the people knew who they were supporting. And he kept pushing for a vote to select someone for the presidency to run as the candidate for president. And the CLC, by and large, kept saying, just hold off, just wait. He said no. He said he wanted to have a candidate that was selected so we can go ahead and move on. So ultimately, there is a board of seven individuals that says, they control with regards to, or the accountability with regards to the monies and the administration of the concerned letter carrier, which is a 501c organization, which is nonprofit. And so anyone that wants to see or any of our finances and things, it's public record because it's a 501c nonprofit. So with that being said, Mike, he even had someone on the board from his region, his state president at the time, Louis Rivas. And Mike asked for this vote. So then it could be presented to those that were saying that they were going to affiliate or was affiliating themselves with the CLC. And I think it was on May, back in uh, May of 23, Mike Cariff had decided that, it was okay to have this vote. And the officers or the board had called and asked both of us, had us both on the phone and asked us, all right, since Mike wants to have this vote, would you go ahead and abide by whatever the decision that the board makes and presents to the CLC and go from there? And I said yes. Mike said yes. At that point, they took a vote. The very first person that cast a vote was Louis Rivas, his own Illinois state president, says, I'm voting for James. And ultimately, the vote was 7-0. At that point, Mike, I on the phone, I asked him, I said, look, I said, are you sure you're good with this? He says, yes, I'm good with this. I said, are you sure? He said, yes, I'm sure. He says, I thought they was a little quick to the draw, but hey, the decision has been made and I'm with you. And not only did he, at that point, uh, we hung up the phone and the team, well, before we hung up, the board said, that's exciting. I'm glad that we have a consensus and we can go back to the people and we can tell them we got somebody that we all agree upon. Mike ended up calling Chris Jackson. He called some of his branch officers, his branch president. He called me. I mean, he didn't call me. He sent me a text stating the following. And this text here is Tuesday, May 7th, 2024 at 3:13 p.m. And this is from Mike Cariff himself. It says, my brother, we have a lot to talk about, but I'm excited the CLC officers are absolute leaders for our union and they're confident in you, which gives me a lot of confidence. I still think they were quick on the draw there, but they had obviously thought about it already. So that's a decision has been made. I'm going to help you in any way I can. Trust and believe that. So I was excited about the fact that we were on one accord, that we had a unity, because for me, this has never, ever, ever, ever been about James Henry. This has been about the objective, about reforming this union and replacing the current president because of some of the failures I believe has transpired. Well, 2 days later, Mike launches his campaign without notice to anyone and decided that he was going to run for president. And then, in my view, lathered up his supporters by not telling the whole truth. And I said this, I'm not saying something to you that is something that I have not said to him to his face. So everyone that's listening and his supporters need to know that the very conversation that I'm sharing with you, I had directly with him. I said, Mike, the reason that I will not have a debate with you, first and foremost, I'm not your enemy. I'm not your opponent. I'm not the president. I'm not the one that ran this union ship upon the rocks. Why aren't you asking Renfro for a debate? He's the one that's in charge. You don't need to debate me. Theoretically, you and I are on the same page. Theoretically, you and I are on the same side. He says, no. I said, aren't you running because you want to make a difference in the union because Renfro is in charge? He says, no, I'm running because you're running. I said, oh, that's bizarre because again, I'm not the president. And then moreover, why would we have a debate when one, everyone that's perhaps going to run has yet to declare? You don't have a debate unless you have all parties involved. But moreover, your word is trash to me. You said that you were going to support me. You have people believing that I'm the one and the CLC is the one that's splitting the vote when you're the one that decided to defect. You're the one that asked for the vote. You're the one that decided that once it did not go your way, that you want to take your ball and go home. So that is not for me to pull out. In addition to that, why would we have a debate that's not inclusive of everybody, and also that every single member in the NLC would be able to participate in and be able to weigh in a Zoom or at a particular place? That does not get the job done. There's 290,000 individuals just about that would have a say in that. So anybody that would be disenfranchised in our membership, I'm opposed to any participate in anything that's not inclusive of all of them. Right. Moreover, in addition to that, like I said, is that it does not mean nothing to me when you tell me that you're going to do something and you're dishonest and you don't keep your word. How can I trust that when we would sit down and agree upon a format, agree upon any questions or anything, that you would keep your word? Credibility is your currency in this life. And his credibility is zero with me. And that's not mudslinging. I'm asked a point blank question. I'm giving the reasons. Because guess what? This text that I just read to you, and I'm going to send it to you. So those that are in dispute or are skeptical about that it exists, you can take it and you can post it later on your show here. But the fact of the matter is that his supporters, a great deal of them, don't believe that he asked for the vote. Don't believe, he thinks that it was just a select group. He the one that helped put that group together. He put a member on that group. It was his uh, state president that cast the first vote against him. That's just the truth of the matter. So I don't abide with dishonesty. I'm not going to engage in that. And just like I told some of his supporters as well, one of the other things is here, because you got to ask yourself, why isn't he pushing to have a debate with Renfro? He's now adjusted his position because I've said this over and over to him and some of his supporters. Why you keep pushing me versus the one that is in charge now? I'm not the one that's made the decisions that's got this union where it's at. The deal is because there's ulterior motives in my view. And what would that be? Theatrics. I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm not, I'm not willing to participate in a episode of Jerry Springer because that's all that would be. Is a got you or trying to diminish each other opposed to sorting out ideas. I don't and will not abide by dishonesty. And in my view, he's been dishonest all the way for the last 2 years by not telling the truth and putting things in context, lying by omission, by not telling the whole truth. Moreover, by ensuring that uh, he tell the truth with regards, like I said, of what the agreement was. He will not admit to it to this day. And so here it is 2 years later. I'm sharing the text. I could have put that out on Facebook 2 years ago, but I didn't because I've been operating and believe in you can't clean the pig and be in the mud with it. But when somebody continues to lie on you and lie on you and lie on you and continue to dispatch their supporters to further a a false narrative, you have to establish what the truth is. And so that's exactly what I'm doing. And like I said, I will not engage in theatrics and I will not give him a stage to uh, lie. And I'm having to adjust and adapt in that sense to address lies. It's just not going to do it.
All right. Yeah, I'll make sure to share those receipts once you send them to me. Yep. What is your plan to address the backlog at Step B in arbitration?
Here's the thing. Those of you that don't know, this goes to in regards to my credentials. And I have to say this here, brother Joshua. The other thing that I find very bizarre is that some of the other candidates that are well aware of my record, which speaks for itself. And I'll say this without equivocation. I'll place my record up against every single individual in this entire NALC, including the sitting president. I was and am one of the very first DRT members in the entire country. When it was a pilot program, back in 1997, I received a phone call personally from Vince Sombrado saying that they were going to have this pilot program that we want to revamp and restructure the grievance arbitration procedure. It's going to call the dispute resolution process. You've been identified by your national business agent, which at that time was Tom Young. Uh, would you accept and go and let us see if this here actually has any viability? I was honored because they could have picked anybody to do so. And so I spent the first 2 years in the grievance arbitration procedure, doing the dispute resolution process for the Santa Ana district. They had a few teams around the country. It wasn't widespread. It was a pilot program. And what I did and several others around the country is what caused the current iteration of the collective bargaining agreement we have now. Because then it was step one, step two, step three. Now it's in formal A, step B. And uh, I also oversaw 6 teams in Region 1 for 10 years. Where am I saying is that I'm very adept and very knowledgeable since its inception on the dispute resolution process. So prior to it being stripped away from me, I had agreements with the Postal Service. And I, I have emails to that effect as well from Postal Service headquarters. It's much more um, it's much more involved than what the synopsis I'm going to give you with regards to being able to reduce the backlog. But first and foremost, what you have to do to reduce the grievance backlog is have people on both sides that's in place that's willing to apply the collective bargaining agreement provisions, the articles, the handbooks and manuals, as they are written and as they have been interpreted throughout the decades, meaning make decisions that you have to have people in place that's willing to make decisions based on what the file itself says, not based on what's specifically advantageous for you or advantageous for them. What is contractually sound? So one of the things that we've gotten away from now is the joint process. When I mean in the spirit, what I'm talking about, the spirit of jointness is gone. It's very tribal. It's whatever is beneficial for me on management is what they're going to do. You could whatever is beneficial for the union seemingly is what they're going to do. You know, it's just you could have a video showing somebody stole something right there, and management accused the wrong carrier, and the video shows that it was somebody else. They still now in today's environment won't even put that carrier back to work that they know and got evidence is innocent because they want to support the action that was taken by the person at the lower level. That's not what it's for. So first and foremost, you have to identify the right people to put the right people in the right place. Once that has happened, you have to have what the saying goes, many hands make for small work. The backlog is such that the number of teams and individuals that we have is woefully insufficient. So therefore, that means that we would need to get with the Postal Service, agree to train additional people in addition to the backups that we have, train additional people, meaning that we got to have more classes, to have more teams, to have more individuals, and activate all the backups to be able to have the sufficient number of personnel to address and do the workload. In addition to that, you have to write what's called educational decisions, decisions that have teeth to them, that sets precedents, like they said. So when those at the local party see those decisions, they can take that and apply or reconcile that against a potential or a violation that's happened on the floor and say, well, this is what the team has said, this is what this decision says, and it's how it should be applied, and be able to get it. So what happens there, you stop the bleeding. But in addition to those that are already there, that have been that's up there, you would need to make sure that if they get appeal to the national business agent, that you have somebody that weeds out the wheat from the chaff. Because there are a lot of cases that go up that just may be a gripe and not a grievance, you know, or
Yep.
may be a grievance and management just doesn't want to admit to it because they don't want to pay the compensatory remedies. Such one of the things is a lot of times you have route inspection, and then when the union is asking for $10 a day, 6 days a week, until the routes are properly adjusted, there's no dispute that the routes are out of adjustment. There's no dispute that there's a violation, but the manager doesn't want to put their name to the amount of money that is going to be involved, right? So as such, you got to have individuals that are willing to, or that you got to assign folks to somewhat that they call pre-arbs, as you know, separate the wheat from the chaff. And then in addition to that, with the workload that we have to hire more arbitrators. You have to have more arbitrators, which means to hear cases. In addition to the arbitrators, you got to have more advocates. So you got to train more advocates to be able to hear those cases and present them going forward as well. And then finally, you have to have an understanding nationwide with Postal Service at the headquarters level that sets the tone that says, hey, we are on one accord, and making sure that these individuals down at the local level and at the area level are applying the contract the way they're supposed to, and understanding that they can't just punt the ball and kick it up to a higher level because they think it's a crapshoot. So it's a lot that goes into that, but these are the things that I know is that's tried and true, and that we should not be settling two things. And I'll get off of this here. We should not be settling grievances with language that is detrimental to future violations, such as language. I'm talking about by and large. We should not have language such as without prejudice to either party or this is non-precedent setting, things of that nature, because it one incentivize management to continue to violate because they know they're not going to be held accountable. Secondly, we should not be um, uh, resolving grievances pennies on the dollars because management knows that it's less cost effective for me to violate the contract than to go ahead and comply because then I would have to pay the full bounty. And what I call giving the baby the sucker just to get them to shut up right then and there. And they end up with rotten teeth. And the rotten teeth proverbially is management having this attitude that I don't have to comply because if I just hold out, the union will give me a deal later. And that's a lot less expensive than it is to comply. So those things, making sure that we have decisions that have teeth in them and making sure that we teeth with meaning language and making sure that we don't uh, neuter our decisions so we won't be disincentivized in management. Those are the things by and large that would reduce the backlog, not only temporarily, but permanently, or at least on a sustained basis. Because I tell you, brother, we've been hacking at the leads versus the root of the problem. Because when you just rely solely on pre-arbs, all you're doing is throwing one bucket of sand out the sand pit and two more fall in. That's not getting it. You need to
Yep.
have a steady stream.
Yeah, I can't wait for that relief.
All right. Did that make sense to you, what I
Yeah,
said?
absolutely. Yeah. I hope that that actually happens because we need it to happen more now than ever.
Yes, sir.
What specifically would your administration do to ensure offices without steward representation are not left behind?
And and that's very interesting question. One of the things is making sure that the national business agents offices do their job. Essentially, that's what it. There's a couple of things that come to mind that the administration would do. One, ensuring that the business agents do their job. The business agent office do their job. The purpose of the business agent is to provide resource to the local offices, provide guidance and assistance. And so, one, the business agent office, if need be, those RAAs and currently RGAs and stuff would need to go in and help out with those grievances. They would need to make sure that they set up training for them, and if there's no one that is that's available or willing to represent those small branches in that office, or then what do? Is that you get some of those NAAs and you send outside stewards until you get someone that's willing to step up and stand in the gap for them. But the main thing in making sure that those small offices or small branches are not left behind is making sure that they're educated and also making sure that they have all the air support that they are supposed to get, and that comes via the National Business Agent Office.
All right. Do you have any additional contract information beyond the vague updates that are currently being provided to members?
No, as of right now, the only thing I know is that there has been no agreements on anything.
All right, no inside scoop. I got
No.
it. All right. Okay, this is another tough one. Some carriers describe the CLC strategy as a political moneyball, meaning building a slate around large branches capable of delivering voting blocks. How do you respond to criticism that candidate selection may prioritize political influence over qualifications or experience?
Well, here's the deal. I tell you this here. First and foremost, uh, money balling is a extremely interesting term to use. But anyone, whether you're a large branch, medium branch, or small branch, that have decided to join our slate is someone that our message has resonated with, right? It's not about no strategic, uh, targeted uh, tactic about getting large branches. These are individuals that have demonstrated, you talking about experience, these are individuals that have demonstrated that they have the courage to stand up and be willing to represent carriers, the letter carrier craft, and to help reform this union. There are several individuals that were offered opportunities to join with the CLC. A lot of individuals that are more experienced than some of the individuals on our slate, frankly, just did not have the courage to stand forward with it. Some by circumstance, and some, in my opinion, just didn't have the courage to do so for one reason or another. But that's a false narrative as well, because guess what? Even though I come from the largest branch in the country, branch 1100, Bill Kriebel, he's out at Bethlehem, uh, Pennsylvania, a couple of hundred members. That's not a large branch. You have Ethel Bibbs out of Beaumont, Texas. That's a small branch. You know, you have Howard Khomeini, running for national trustee out of Honolulu. They only have about 800 members. That's not a large branch. We have large, medium, and small branches. We have table one, table two. We have young, old, black, white, male, female. Our political spectrum is very, very diverse. And the reality of it is here is that we focus in on making sure that there is no longer a two-tier wage system. We focus in on making sure that letter carriers are receiving, or that we're going to fight for higher wages. We focus in on making sure that the letter carriers receive full colas for everyone at every step. We're focused in on making sure that there's a shorter step process from the first step to the last step. We focus in on making sure that we have a more affordable health care. We focus in on trying to make sure that those that are uh, at the bottom have a higher starting wage as well. We focus in on making sure that those that have uh, uncredited time working for the Postal Service, that we have legislation that they get their time credited back to them. You know, those are the type of things that we've been speaking on and traveling the country and speaking on a consistent basis. And if so happens that our message is resonating with larger branches, medium branches, small branches, then so be it. This is about we, brother. This is not about James. This is not about anyone specific on the CLC. And let me make this clear to you and everybody that's listening. The CLC stands for Concerned Letter Carriers. That is a slate name, no different than saying Barner Renfro, saying uh, Biden Harris. Is just the name of the slate. It's not a replacement for the NLC. It is not a derivative of the NALC. We are all part of the same union. But these are individuals, we are individuals that are committed to reforming this union. And you can reform this union and love it all at the same time. And so let nobody fool you otherwise. So this is not any way, shape, form, or fashion any money balling. Personally, that just sounds uh like that, what's that saying? Haterade. Sound like they hate us because they ain't us.
All right. That's good good answer. Let's see. You currently serve on portions of the bargaining committee involving Article 4, 8, and 41. What specific proposals have you personally drafted or supported regarding mandatory overtime, work hour protections, staffing shortages, or work assignment limitations?
Do not currently sign on it. Currently do not serve on any committee.
Okay.
You know, initially, one of the subcommittees I was uh, not assigned from the very beginning any committee. Then I was assigned that committee that you're talking about. Then I was unassigned. So I currently do not belong to any committee.
All right. Let's see. We'll do two more and then we'll end it up. Is that cool?
Yeah, however you want to roll, man.
All right, then we'll do to part two. For everyone who hasn't heard their question yet, don't fret. We're gonna probably do 3 and 4 too because it looks like we got a lot of questions left. Uh,
Okay.
let's see. How important is it that to you that resident national officers physically work from headquarters in Washington D.C. rather than remotely? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine these questions so we can get rid of both of them because someone else was also referring to Corey Walton working from Tennessee if elected. So you can comment on that if you feel like it. I think that's what both of them are referring to.
Well, let me share this with you. When you are elected as a resident officer, your job is at NELC headquarters. That doesn't require anyone to sell their homes, you know, or change their residency. It does uh, dictate to mandate that when necessary that you at NLC headquarters, which primarily consists of every single day, unless you're on assignments or doing something business related for the NALC. And the one thing is here is is I think that people take so many things and go ahead and misrepresent, mischaracterize things that I was saying. Corey is stating that, he very well may not sell his home, but he will be at NLC headquarters whenever and as much as necessary. And that is the expectation of all officers, right? I do know that when Vince Vibrato, he never relocated his home from New York, but he was at headquarters vast majority of the time for whatever reason. There are times where it's not practical for someone to be in the office, but majority of the time you're expected to be there in the office, and that's what would be expected.
All right. Let's
And Let me,
see.
let me, let me, let me say this to you. I have to make sure that I indicate here. You know, the one thing they've tried to make my man Corey Walton a boogeyman, as you know. They have, and and Corey has spent the last 3 years of his career educating and advocating for letter carriers for free. He takes phone calls and messages from people that he does not know or even heard of, just simply because they've reached out. His only day off on Sunday, almost without fail, you can set your watch by it, unless there's extenuating circumstances, like this most recent one, where the son got married. He didn't do it on Sunday, but he did it that Monday. Every now and then. But you can almost set your watch by it, how dependable it is that he puts out a episode from A to Arbitration each week. And it's for no other reason than because he loves it and he cares about what he does and he loves the letter carrier. And that time, and he has such a lovely, wonderful wife, Tracy, we give her a shout out. She allows him to do that because she understands his passion. And I cannot tell you how proud I am to have Corey ride side by side with me when it comes to this this journey that we on with this endeavor of trying to reform this union. And not only him, but everyone on the slate. But in particular, like I said, they try and make him the boogeyman. Corey has a stellar reputation amongst management of how he handles himself, and uh, there's no one that can say the professional Corey versus the personal Corey are always one and the same. But the one thing is, I often say, brother, is that every rose has thorns. None of us are perfect, but we have a perfect heart. The one thing that I have, the one thing that Corey have, and everyone on the CLC slate, and make no mistake about it, is that we're about the letter carriers business. We love the letter carriers. And the reason that we're doing what we're doing is for that reason and that reason alone. I, myself, and Corey and several others on the CLC slate has been traveling the country, getting our message out, going out and meeting with letter carriers. And I find it just very, very bizarre and astounding that, at one point in time, I was hearing the rumors of individuals claiming, well, I don't see enough of James Henry and we don't hear it. And now, why is that he forever out on the road? Well, anything that you care about is going to show some signs of it. And you remember this here, Brother Joshua, the hallmark, brother, of anybody that truly care is their willingness and their capacity to sacrifice for what it is that they really genuinely care about. And what Corey has done in terms of giving up on his only day off on Sundays for the most part, and doing hours and doing and responding to individuals that he knows nothing about or anyone around the country. The other that's on the CLC slate that have dedicated their time and efforts in trying to uh, move this union forward and reinvigorate trust and integrity and honesty back into our bloodstream and faith in leadership, and for us to be vilified for it was expected, but it's not a deterrent to us. This is one of the reasons why that we don't get onto the social media by and large and uh, get into going back and forth with individuals. I'm talking about as a slate, the CLC. All
Yeah.
right. Individuals can do whatever that they choose to do, but do not confuse a CLC supporter with the CLC slate. The CLC slate has one mission and one mission only, and that is ensuring that letter carriers have a living wage that they can get from hire date to retirement date, and that they don't have a toxic work environment in the interim.
Now, it's funny you mentioned Corey because they got a few questions about my man Corey, but
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go over one more because you basically touched a little bit on it, but I'm gonna put this question out there anyway, just because we're already on that topic. You mentioned Corey being a boogeyman. It says Corey Walton in particular has been criticized for aggressive podcasts and social media behavior toward dissenters. How do you reconcile that behavior with professionalism required from someone potentially serving in a top national office?
Well, I'll reconcile that by this here is that perspective versus reality are all too often two different things. That's their perspective, but the reality of it is that Corey is an accomplished arbitration advocate. That means he has had extensive experience in dealing with management, not just at the local level, but at the district and the area levels. And there has never, that I'm aware of, and anyone that I can think of, can uh, uh, complain or state that there was a complaint by an arbitrator, by any manager, that Corey has not conducted himself anything short of professional 100% of the time. So I am not concerned about that whatsoever. He has demonstrated by deeds, not just in words, but by deeds, that he is professional when it comes to the workplace. Now, he has his own personal opinions about how the uh, failure sometime of individuals in the union that may not have met his expectations. He has his opinions about how managers are going to do what they want to do, even at the detriment of the letter carriers' well-being. That's his entitlement. Democracy ain't just when you agree with it. But as it relates to professionalism, he has demonstrated in that arena over and over and over and over again for years that he is a professional. There's not one arbitrator, there's not one manager, not one union rep that has dealt with him in a professional setting that says that he was not professional through and through. So I have zero concerns about that.
All right. Let's see. We'll get to one last one and then we'll wrap it up. What gives you hope about the future of the NELC despite the division and hostility within the union right now?
I'm gonna tell you what gives me hope, brother, is my travel in this country for the last 2 years plus and meeting letter carriers of all backgrounds, all parts of this country that have expressed to me that they are excited about what the CLC brings to the table. And that is integrity, that is trustworthiness, that is judgment, that is character in and of itself, that's credibility, that's accountability, that's transparency. All the things that matter that will inform how you move as a leader. They say, we see that in you. And not only is it demonstrated in a one-off, we see it in the consistency of what you guys say and what you do. One of the things this here is, for example, when we have, as the COC, we have for the last year and a half presented online Zoom classes before the NELC decided that they were going to go ahead or have decided they're going to roll out something and actually do it. You may have seen that the CLC have done Zoom classes, nationwide Zoom classes, that we've had as much as 1,200 people on the Zoom with as much as 5,000 cumulatively between Zoom and the Facebook Live and the YouTubes. People are hungry, and they are literally craving what we bring to the table. And that is someone that they genuinely believe that got their backs like vertebrae. So to see these letter carriers be rejuvenated, be reinvigorated, be engaged, and express that they are happy that someone is standing up and not backing down from management and willing to fight for them has given them hope, thereby gives us hope. Because guess what, my brother? I'm not the union. The letter carriers that get up, dress up, and show up to work every day, they're the union. And so when we have them on our side, willing to do what it is necessary to put respect back on the NLC's name, to be brothers and sisters in every sense of the word, that gives me hope. It gives me hope that I have fellow letter carriers that are leaders in their own right, presidents and other branches, or just regular letter carriers that are activists, that says that courage is contagious. We see you, James and Corey, Kamisha, standing up and willing to fight for letter carriers. We'll join hands with you. We'll get into the fray with you. We'll run on this slate and we'll represent letter carriers with all that is within us. That encouraged me. That gives me hope. And what means more to me than all is that we have the sense of brotherhood and camaraderie that a union should have. It seems to be uh, coming back. And we're trying to cultivate that. And we're trying to, like I said, not just in words, but in deeds as well, brother, demonstrate that you got people that genuinely care about you. Got people that genuinely care about you. And it may seem that it's taking the scenic route to get to this point, but we here and we won't abandon you. So that's what gives me hope. And what gives me hope as well is that people are willing to place their faith in some representatives to make sure that their livelihoods are impacted in a positive way by making sure that they're able to achieve a living wage that will put clothes on their back, food on the table, and a roof over their head. That they're willing to place their trust in us, that they know that if they encounter any kind of issues on the workroom floor, that there's going to be someone willing to come and say, my brother, my sister, don't worry about it. You're not alone. We're going to stand with you. We're not only going to fight for you, but we're going to fight with you. Those are the things that give me hope. Looking at people traveling from country across this country, from state to state to state. We've been, brother, from Hawaii down to Puerto Rico, to Indiana, to Savannah, Georgia. Man, we've been Arizona, we've been Colorado, we've been up in Portland, Oregon, and Washington State. We've been in Iowa. We've been in Nebraska. We've been in Illinois, man. We've been any and everywhere. You pretty much been down in Texas, been in uh, Louisiana. We've been in Mississippi. We've been almost any and everywhere that you can think of. Because guess what, my brother? Whether it's two or 2,000, don't matter to me. Now or when we become president and our administration take over, whether it's two or 2,000, they're brothers and sisters, and we're going to always be there for them, and we're going to show up and show out each and every time.
Oh, that's good to hear, man. Now, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to come on and share and get some things cleared up. I want anyone and everyone that's listening to me, like I said, there are individuals out there, and we are grateful for everyone that support the CLC. But there is a distinct difference between the CLC supporter and the CLC slate. You know, we have been doing everything that we can to make sure that we stay focused on what is at hand, what does that matter, what matters most. I'm a serious candidate, brother. We're serious candidates. We're not into this high school game. We're not into trying to diminish somebody else's light to make ours shine brighter. Our records speak for themselves. And what matters most to me is the carriers that are on our slate that have the heart to fight for what they believe in, that has the heart to fight for letter carriers. That's what matters most. Because if you have the right heart and the right attitude, we can teach you what you need to know, you know? Because what sense does it make, or what good does it do you to have a bunch of experience, but you can't be relied upon? You heard me say a lot of time the best ability is dependability. There's no shortage of talent at headquarters now, but most people feel that they can't depend on them. Can't depend on everybody. And like I said, it doesn't apply to everyone, so I don't want to paint with a broad brush. But there is a good deal of individuals out there that believe that there's a good deal of individuals at headquarters that they can't depend upon. Those are the things that matter most. That matter most. And so when it comes down to making sure, like I said, that we have a living wage, and people are trying to clown and mock that, oh, what does that mean? That means what's necessary for you to be able to take care of your fundamental needs. You know, we've been falling further and further behind as it goes along. You, you know, we have a the average wage by the statistics of Bureau is something like $69,000 yearly. Well, when you're talking about what the expenses that carriers have to pay with regards to their rent or house note, that they can buy a house and their cars and all uh, the peripheral expenses, there's very, very little left for them. And so when you have fast food workers making more than the letter carrier craft, a professional job, a union job, we got to ask ourselves, where did we go wrong? You know, at some point in time, our worth was whittled away, but our value remains. And that is what needs to be pointed out here is that regardless of what the pay, stay, and what our worth is, our value is much higher. And we need to make sure that we get what it is that our value is, what it is that we're worth, what our labor is worth. And our letter carriers are hurting. You know, we really are. There are some that may be in a particular area of the country that may do all right, particularly if you got two letter carriers in the same household, right? But by and large, we can and should do better. This is why we cannot have letter carriers, sector of our letter carriers doing the same work and getting less pay, or CCAs, right? Doing the same work and getting less pay. That cannot be, should not be. We should have an all career workforce. Like I said, and everyone should get a cola, full colas, and not some a diet cola. Those are the things that truly matters most. And like I said, and not being able to uh, be concerned about spending more time trying to keep your job than doing your job. The toxic work environment has to be abated. And these are the things that message is resonating with individuals, the letter carriers out there. And then before I let you go, like I said, I don't want anybody out there going to say what James is making all these promises that they can't keep. No, brother, the promise that we're making is that we'll fight for it. And we're going to ask and demand for the things that we know letter carriers are deserving of. And if we don't get it, we'll continue to try back and try back and try back again to get it. That's what we are promising, that we will not have a defeatist attitude. We will not spend time trying to convince the letter carrier craft why the service cannot treat them the way they deserve to be treated and pay what they're deserving of being paid. What we will do is fight for you and fight with you. That's what we'll promise.
All right, you heard it from the wolf himself, folks. I appreciate you being on as well. I know you're a busy man between all this contract negotiation stuff. It was good having you on.
Man, my pleasure and my honor.
Now, for those listeners, if they haven't heard your question yet, we're going to answer it on part 2, 3, 4, maybe 10. But hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.